and welcome to today's lecture on Medea. I'm your professor, Dr. Rob Steffen, and in today's lecture, we're going to take a look at a woman scorned. Now, Medea is best known for her journey with Jason of Jason and the Argonauts, but it's what she does when they get back home that really leaves a lasting impression. So whether you want to go find the golden fleece, or simply poison your husband's new wife, journey with me as we investigate Medea, a woman scorned.
Medea begins her life, and her part in the larger world of Greek mythology, in the town of Colchis. But Colchis is far from the Greek homeland. In fact, it resides at the very edges of the Greek world. It was located in the modern-day post-Soviet country of Georgia, at the far eastern end of the Black Sea. And so in Greek antiquity, Colchis was associated with what was quintessentially non-Greek, a foreign land of barbarism and uncertainty and mysticism. And so it was in this context that Medea was born to King Euripides of Colchis, and we will see how she grows to embody a sense of magic and mysticism as she encounters Jason and the Greeks.
Now, Medea's lineage goes all the way back to the gods. So her mom was an Oceanid nymph, and her dad, King Euripides, well, his father was Helios, god of the sun. And Helios' father was the titan Hyperion. So she has divine origins indeed.
Ancient authors approach this semi-divine lineage in vastly different ways. Sometimes she's seen as distinctly mortal, as in the Argonautica. Sometimes she transitions from mortal to divine, as in Euripides' Medea. And sometimes she's divine from the start, as in Hesiod's Theogony.
So this all just goes to reinforce that all the gods and goddesses, the heroes and heroines, there are many versions of the stories they're a part of. So there's no real right answer to this question because of the diversity of ways this story's been interpreted.
Medea's heroic adventure begins when Jason, leader of the Argonauts, arrives in Colchis seeking the Golden Fleece. This story, in its most complete form, is told in the Argonautica by Apollonius of Rhodes. Upon his arrival, Jason meets with the king and announces his intention to seek the Golden Fleece. King Euripides agrees, but only under the condition that Jason complete 3 nearly impossible tasks. Luckily for Jason, Medea has been struck by Eros' arrow and has fallen in love with Jason. With her help and her sorcery, he will overcome the 3 challenges.
So for the first challenge, Jason has to plow this field with fire-breathing oxen. And here Medea gives him this kind of magical elixir that prevents him from getting burned. And next he's got to plant these dragon's teeth in the field. But when he does that, they erupt into skeleton soldiers. But here again, Medea gives him the secret. She says, throw a stone into the middle of the soldiers. And when he does that, they start fighting each other. Guess they don't have much of a brain anymore. And then finally, he's got to get the fleece from this kind of snake dragon monster itself. And to do that, he uses Medea's help with these magical herbs to put the dragon to sleep. Then he's able, with the help of Medea, to sneak off with the golden fleece.
As it turns out, this was likely the high point of their relationship. With the fleece in hand, they now must escape Colchis. And Medea aids once again in this process by chopping her brother into pieces, scattering his body parts, and allowing the Argonauts and herself to depart while the king looked for his poor son. The journey home was just as eventful as their time in Colchis, and when they arrive back in Iolkos, Jason's hometown, things are just as crazy.
So back home, Medea continues with her kind of magical and mystical ways. So one of the things she does, she takes this old ram and chops it up and boils it in a cauldron and puts some magical herbs in there. And then after casting her spell, the ram evolves and emerges as this really young ram. Now King Pelaius, he wants a little of that action as well. He's like, I'd love to be young again. And so Medea says, sure, just let me chop you up, put you in the cauldron with the magical herbs, no problem at all. And kind of surprisingly, King Pelaius lets her do this, and once he's chopped into pieces, well, she washes her hands of it, walks away, and King Pelaius is dead.
Instead of Jason becoming the rightful new king, his part in this murder means that he and Medea have to flee. And so they head south to Corinth. And it is only once they get to Corinth that the ancient playwright Euripides begins the tale of Medea. And this makes sense. It's drama, not epic. And tragedies like this tend to focus on familial dramas rather than grand adventures. The play begins with Medea's grief. After 10 years of marriage to Jason, he has fallen in love with a new woman, the daughter of the king of Corinth. Not only that, but he means to divorce Medea, marry his new lover, and Medea is to be exiled because of the harm she might bring to the family.
Now, Medea is heartbroken and furious all at the same time, and she makes plans to go to Athens with King Aegeus, the father of Theseus. But she'd like to stay in Corinth just one more day, to say goodbye to her children and get her affairs in order.
And say goodbye she did. First, she gets the new bride a gift, a golden dress from her grandfather Helios. But she just so happens to use her magic to poison the dress. And as the bride-to-be puts on the dress, she tears at her skin in indescribable agony. The king, father of the bride, rushes in to save his daughter. But as he tries to help, the poison spreads to him. Soon both the king and the princess lay dead.
Now, Medea's not done yet, and she starts planning to kill her own children. But this is a really tough decision for her because she loves her children. She doesn't hate them. But she knows that this is the thing that's going to hurt Jason the most. And so she carries it through, she kills her children, and then she flies away on this chariot of fire from her dad Helios, cursing Jason's pain as she goes. Whew, boy, talk about a woman scorned.
They say hell hath no fury like a woman scorned. And in Euripides' play, it is undoubtedly a tale of death and destruction that can be wrought from a woman who has been betrayed by her husband. The play itself touches on numerous themes frequently addressed in Greek tragedy. With her origins in the mysterious land of Colchis, Medea's foreignness is emphasized. And with the play going as it does, it highlights the unpredictability of non-Greeks. Moreover, the emphasis on the themes of passion and rage is clear. Since her days helping Jason in Colchis, Medea has always been a passionate woman, and Jason's betrayal has turned that passion into rage. The theme of revenge is equally prominent. Not only will Medea seek revenge for Jason's actions, she's willing to sacrifice everything, killing her own children, whom she herself actually loves, just to see him suffer. There's a running focus on intelligence and manipulation as well. Both Jason and the king try to manipulate Medea, but in the end, Medea turns out to be the master of manipulation.
Now, interestingly, for a play where women are treated so poorly, this is actually seen as perhaps one of the first feminist plays. And that's because it really focuses on some of the hardships that women go through in the domestic sphere. And it gives the protagonist, a woman, some agency in her own situation, even if it is a rather kind of drastic fix to the bind that she's in.
authors discuss what happens to Medea after the murders and her flight from Corinth. According to some sources, she stops by Thebes, where she finds Heracles and uses her magic to free him from Hera's curse. Most sources have her end up in Athens as the new wife of King Aegeus, namesake of the Aegean Sea and father of the Athenian hero Theseus. And the trip to Athens hasn't stemmed Medea's murdering ways. When Theseus reaches Athens, after defeating 6 chthonic guardians of the underworld, Medea sees him as a threat. What if he steals the inheritance she now considers her own? So she welcomes him, pours him a glass of wine, but of course, it's poisoned. And only at the last second, when Aegeus recognizes the sword and sandals he buried under a rock so many years ago, does he knock the glass of wine out of Theseus' hand, saving his life.
Now, the ancient sources differ on what happens next. In one version of the story, she goes back home to Colchis, and there she restores her father Aeetes to the throne. I guess he forgot about her chopping up her brother Aspertus along the way. In another version of the story, she ends up going off to Iran, and there she's worshipped and the people change their name to the Medes. And this, of course, is the empire that precedes the Persians later on.
You may be happy to know that Medea does have a happy afterlife. According to various sources, she avoids the fields of asphodel and goes to the Isles of the Blessed. And there she marries Achilles, in what must have been a truly rage-filled marriage.
Now, Medea actually is worshipped after her death. And when there's a plague in Corinth, they go to the oracle. And the oracle says, establish a cult to Medea. And so they do this within the sanctuary of Hera. And they set up statues to Medea and her children and to Dama, or Terror. And each year there are 7 young men and 7 young women who don black robes and cut their hair in honor of this heroine. So this is a truly horrific story about betrayal and murder. But at the same time, we see a focus on kind of the hardships that women actually go through in the domestic sphere and see them actually doing something about it. So whether Medea is a heroine or a monster, well, that's up to you. Just a couple lessons you can learn from
Medea, a woman scorned.